Robert Miller caught the custodian in his office in an intimate situation. Ready to ruin her life, what he discovered about her changed everything forever. Before we begin today's story, tell us where you're watching from. Grab a coffee or get comfortable on the couch, and please don't forget to support us by simply clicking like. Ready? Let's start. The rain lashed against the skyscraper windows when Robert Miller decided to return to the office. It was almost midnight, but he had forgotten some important documents for the next day's meeting. As CEO of one of the nation's largest tech companies, he was used to these late hours. Though he preferred working from home, the building was completely empty, or at least it should have been. Only the emergency lighting cut through the darkness of the corridors. His footsteps echoed on the polished marble as he headed for the executive elevator. Robert had always liked that silence. It was when he could think best, away from endless meetings and decisions that affected thousands of employees. At 52, he had built an empire, but at a high cost. His marriage had ended 5 years ago, and his relationship with his son, well, he preferred not to think about it. Work was all he had left, and he had become very good at feeling nothing but the satisfaction of growing numbers in his spreadsheets. The elevator arrived at the 40th floor, where his office was located. The doors opened with a soft whoosh, and Robert walked down the dark corridor to his room. It was then that he noticed a faint light coming from under the door. He immediately found it strange. No one should have been there at that hour. His first reaction was irritation. Someone had invaded his personal space, probably a negligent employee who had forgotten to turn off the lights. Or worse, perhaps it was a robbery. His business mind immediately began to calculate the losses and the security measures that would need to be reviewed. He approached the door cautiously, already thinking of calling security. But what he heard made him stop completely. These were not the voices of thieves or employees working late. They were sounds he recognized immediately, even as he tried not to process what they meant. Robert felt the blood rush to his face. Not only had someone invaded his office, but they were using the place for that. The audacity was unbelievable. In all his years as an entrepreneur, he had never witnessed such a lack of respect. He took a deep breath, trying to control his anger, and slowly turned the doorknob. The door was unlocked. The light came from a small lamp someone had brought, casting dancing shadows on the walls of his normally immaculate office. What he saw left him speechless for a few seconds. It wasn't unknown employees or intruders. It was Maria, the custodian who cleaned the offices during the early morning hours for almost 2 years. A young woman, perhaps 35, who always greeted him with a shy smile when they occasionally crossed paths on the late nights he worked. But now she was there, in a situation he would never have imagined, with an older, well-dressed man who was clearly not an employee of the company. The scene was too obvious for any alternative interpretation. What on earth is going on here? His voice came out louder than he intended, echoing through the office. Maria immediately pulled away, her face red with shame and panic. She tried to cover herself with the clothes scattered on the floor, while the man quickly dressed, mumbling apologies and clearly looking for an exit. "Mr. Miller, I can explain." Her voice trembled, and Robert could see tears forming in her eyes. "Explain. Explain how you dare to use my private office for this." His voice was laden with a mixture of anger and disgust. "In my office, where I conduct meetings, where I make important decisions." The man managed to get fully dressed and rushed past Robert, muttering something about a misunderstanding. Robert didn't even bother to look at him. All his attention was focused on the woman who was now quickly dressing, her hands trembling so much she could barely button her blouse. "Please, Mr. Miller, I need this job. I know it looks terrible, but I have an explanation. There's no explanation that justifies this. You're fired, and I'll make sure you never get a job in any decent company in this city again. The words came out cold and sharp, but Robert was already calculating the next steps. He would sue for trespassing, perhaps for emotional distress. He would make an example no one would forget. Maria finished dressing in silence, but didn't leave immediately. She remained standing there, her hands clasped in front of her body, as if gathering courage to speak. Robert waited, arms crossed, prepared to hear any pathetic excuse she might invent. "Mr. Miller, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but..." Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "My son is in the hospital. He has a rare condition, needs constant surgeries, expensive medications. Our health insurance doesn't cover everything." Robert rolled his eyes. "And that justifies turning my office into a motel. There are other ways to get money. Work more, ask for a loan, seek charity. I work 16 hours a day. I clean offices at night, work at a laundry service in the morning, and care for seniors in the afternoon. I can't get more jobs because I need to be available for his medical emergencies." Tears began to stream down her face, but she kept talking. "Loans were denied, charity helps, but it's not enough. That's not my problem." Robert was determined not to be swayed by sad stories. He had heard many over the years. Employees always had personal crises, sick children, struggling relatives. "You violated trust, disrespected this place. The consequences are yours." Maria nodded, wiping away tears with the back of her hand. "I understand. Just, could you wait until tomorrow to officially fire me? I need to work tonight to get paid. Thomas's next surgery is next week." Something about the name changed the tone of the conversation. Thomas, a real name, a real boy. Robert tried to maintain his firm demeanor, but the mention of a surgery bothered him more than he cared to admit. "What kind of condition?" he asked before he could stop himself. "Spina bifida. He was born with a malformed spine. He's already had 6 surgeries, but doctors say he needs 1 more to have any chance of walking." She spoke quickly, as if afraid he would lose patience. "He's 8 years old and has never been able to stand on his own." Robert felt something strange in his chest, a sensation he hadn't felt in a long time. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the practical situation. "And how much does this surgery cost?" $60,000. It's an experimental surgery with a specialist from Los Angeles. The insurance doesn't cover anything because it's considered experimental. Maria wiped her nose with a crumpled tissue she pulled from her pocket. "I've already managed to save $22,000. I still need 38. "And how much do you earn from this?" Robert gestured vaguely, unable to say the words. Maria lowered her gaze. $300 per encounter, sometimes $500 if it's someone with more money. Her voice was almost inaudible. "I hate it. I hate every second. But in 2 weeks, I can earn what would take 2 years to save working normally." Robert did the math mentally. $60,000. For him, it was the equivalent of a few hours of the company's profit. For her, it meant prostituting herself for months, risking not only her job but her own safety. "Where's your husband? The boy's father?" "There is no father. At least not one who takes responsibility." Maria finally looked at him. When he found out about Thomas's condition, he disappeared. He said he hadn't signed up to care for a defective child. The word defective hit Robert like a punch to the gut. He remembered his own son, the cruel words he had said during their last argument, the choices he made, prioritizing work when he should have prioritized family. "Show me a picture of him." Maria hesitated, then pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen was cracked, but the image was clear. A thin boy with brown hair and bright eyes, smiling from his wheelchair. He was wearing a superhero t-shirt and holding a toy car. He likes cars. He dreams of driving one day, even knowing he might never be able to. Maria smiled for the first time. He's the most optimistic child I've ever met. He never complains, never asks why he's different. He just wants to play and go to school like other kids. Robert looked at the photo longer than he intended. The boy's smile reminded him of someone, but he couldn't identify who. "How long have you been working here?" Robert returned the phone, his voice slightly softer. "A year and 10 months. I've never been late, never missed a day, never broken anything." Maria carefully put the phone away. "I know it doesn't matter anymore after what happened today." Robert walked to the window, observing the illuminated city below. Millions of people, each with their struggles, their stories. He had isolated himself so much in his world of spreadsheets and meetings that he had forgotten there was real life beyond the numbers. "How many times have you done this? Here in the building?" This was the second time. The first was 3 weeks ago, in the 10th floor office. She answered honestly. "I always clean everything afterward, never leave a trace. I don't use employee offices, only empty ones or meeting rooms." "And how do you get clients?" Robert still struggled with the words. Maria blushed again. "There's an app. People look for company. I offer a discreet location. It's all very professional." Professional. The word sounded strange in that context, but Robert understood what she meant. It wasn't a casual or romantic situation. It was purely transactional, a desperate mother doing what she could to save her son. "What about security? The cameras?" "I know all the blind spots. I've worked here for almost 2 years. I know exactly where the cameras don't reach." Maria sighed. "I thought it was safe. You never come here after 11. She was right. Robert almost never returned to the office that late. It had been a terrible coincidence, or perhaps a necessary one. "You said you have other jobs. What are your hours?" "Laundry from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., senior care from 3 to 8 p.m., cleaning here from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Maria recited it like a memorized prayer. "I sleep from 9 to 1 when I can. That's only 4 hours of sleep, sometimes less when Thomas has episodes. He has constant pain, especially at night." She rubbed her tired eyes. "But I can handle it. It's temporary. After the surgery, he'll get better, and I can go back to working normally." Robert turned to face her. "What if the surgery doesn't work?" Maria was silent for a moment, and he saw the fear in her eyes. "I can't think about that. I have to believe it will work. It's the only thing that keeps me going." Her determination impressed him. It was different from the determination he knew in the business world, where people fought for power, money, status. This was a fight for the life of someone she loved unconditionally. "Where do you live?" "In a studio apartment downtown. It's small, but it's close to the hospital." Maria seemed confused by the questions. "Why are you asking that?" Robert didn't know how to answer. Something had changed since he saw the boy's photo, since he heard the full story. The anger had dissipated, replaced by something he hadn't felt in a long time: empathy. "Have you ever thought about asking for help? There are institutions, non-profits that help children with special needs. I've tried them all. I'm on the waiting list for 3 organizations, but they have hundreds of cases. Thomas's surgery can't wait another 6 months." Maria shook her head. "That's why I decided to do this. I know it's wrong. I know it could ruin my life, but it's the only fast way to get the money." Robert admired her honesty. Many people in desperate situations would lie, invent excuses, try to manipulate. Maria was being brutally honest about her choices, even knowing it could make her situation worse. "What if I hadn't shown up today? What was the plan?" "Work until I got the money. 2 or 3 more weeks, depending on demand." She smiled sadly. "Now it will take much longer. I'll have to find other places, other jobs. Thomas will have to wait." "No." The mention of the surgery's delay, hit Robert deeper than he expected. A child waiting, dreaming of walking, while time passed. Robert returned to his desk, but didn't sit down. He stood there, observing Maria, trying to organize the confused thoughts forming in his mind. There was something about the situation that disturbed him beyond the obvious property violation. Tell me more about your son. What's his daily life like? Maria seemed surprised by the question, but answered. He always wakes up excited, even when he's in pain. He loves watching cartoons while having breakfast. I take him to school in a special van that the city provides. Her face lit up as she spoke of the boy. His teachers say he's the smartest in his class. He likes math and drawing cars. And he knows about your financial situation? He knows we work hard to get money for the surgery, but he doesn't know how. Maria lowered her eyes. He sometimes asks me why I'm always tired. I tell him it's because I work at night so we can be together during the day. Robert imagined the boy in the photo, waiting for his mother to come home, unaware of the sacrifices she was making. The innocence of that child contrasted brutally with the harsh reality Maria faced. Do you have family, parents, siblings? My parents died when I was 20. I have no siblings. Maria wiped away a tear that stubbornly fell. It's just me and Thomas. That's why I can't give up on him. The woman's loneliness was palpable. Robert knew the feeling well, although his circumstances were completely different. He had chosen isolation through obsessive work. She had been forced into isolation by the necessity of caring for her son. What if something happens to you? Who will take care of him? The question hit Maria like a slap in the face. Nothing can happen to me. He has no one else. Her voice trembled. That's why I need to be careful, but I also need to be fast. Every day that passes, he suffers more. Robert walked to the small break area in his office, where he kept a coffee machine for longer meetings. He made 2 coffees without asking if she wanted one. He needed time to think. Have you considered other options? Selling assets, a secured loan? I have no assets to sell. I don't earn enough for a secured loan. Maria accepted the coffee with a whispered thank you. I tried everything before resorting to this. Do you think a mother reaches this point by choice? The question was rhetorical, but Robert heard it as an accusation. He had judged without knowing the facts, assuming motivations without understanding the real desperation. How many clients do you see a week? 2 or 3. It depends on availability and location. Maria held the cup with both hands as if seeking warmth. It's not easy to find men who agree to pay for discreet locations. Most want cheap hotels or motels. And why do they agree to pay more? Executives, married businessmen, they need total discretion. Maria looked around the luxurious office. Places like this convey credibility. There's no risk of being seen by acquaintances. Robert understood the perverse logic of the situation. Wealthy men buying not just company, but also security and status. And Maria offering what she had most valuable, access to exclusive locations to save her son. Aren't you afraid? Strange men? Situations that could get out of control. I'm very afraid, but I'm more afraid of losing my son. Maria took a sip of coffee. I always make the rules clear. I always charge up front. I always choose locations where I can leave quickly if necessary. Her practicality was impressive and frightening at the same time, a mother transformed into an entrepreneur of herself. Managing risks like Robert managed investments, but with infinitely higher stakes. And after the surgery, what's the plan? To go back to just being a mother and a worker, to find a better job, maybe take a technical course. Maria smiled genuinely for the first time. Thomas always says he wants me to be happy. I think being a normal mother would be the greatest happiness in the world. Robert finished his coffee in silence, observing the woman in front of him. She wasn't asking for pity or trying to manipulate him. She was simply being honest about an impossible situation. You mentioned the surgery costs $60,000. Robert set the empty cup on the table. How much have you saved already? $22,300, Maria answered immediately. I've saved every cent I've earned in the last 6 months. Robert did a quick calculation. Less than $40,000 were missing. For him, it was an insignificant amount. For her, it represented months of sacrifice and humiliation. What if I offer a proposal? Maria looked up, alert. What kind of proposal? A loan. I'll pay for the surgery, and you'll pay me back in monthly installments, interest-free. Robert spoke slowly, as if testing the words. In return, you stop with this. Activity, keep your job here, and focus solely on caring for your son. The silence that followed was tense. Maria watched him as if trying to decipher an enigma, looking for the catch or the hidden trap in the offer. Why would you do that? 2 hours ago, you were ready to destroy me. Robert didn't have a simple answer. Because perhaps I judged the situation too quickly. Because I know what it's like to lose a child and not be able to help. The last part came out unplanned. Maria noticed the change in his voice. You have a son. Had. Robert automatically corrected himself. He died 5 years ago. Cancer. He also needed surgeries, experimental treatments, expensive doctors. I'm so sorry. The empathy in Maria's voice was genuine. That must have been terrible. The difference is that I had money for everything. The best doctors, the best hospitals, all possible treatments. Robert sat heavily in his chair. But I didn't have time. I was always working, always in important meetings, always postponing the conversation we needed to have. Maria waited in silence, realizing he needed to talk. The last time I saw him conscious, he asked me if I loved him more than work. I said it was a silly question, that everything I did was for him. Robert took a deep breath. He said he didn't feel that way. He said I visited him, as if it were just another appointment on my schedule. And was it? The direct question surprised him. No, at least that's not what I thought, but looking back... Robert trailed off, unable to continue. Do you blame yourself for his death? I blame myself for not being the father he deserved. Robert looked at Maria. Your son has the most dedicated mother I've ever met. Even making desperate choices, everything you do is for him. Maria wiped a tear. Sometimes I feel it's not enough, that I should be able to be a mother and still find a better way to earn money. You're doing the impossible to save your son. I had all the resources and failed to simply be present. Robert stood up again. Perhaps helping you both is a way to do something right this time. I can't accept charity, especially not after what happened here. It's not charity, it's a loan with specific conditions. Robert was beginning to organize the idea in his mind. You continue working here, with a salary increase. Additionally, I'll need someone to organize some personal projects on weekends. Extra work, extra pay. Maria watched him with suspicion. What kind of extra work? Document organization, filing, perhaps some simple administrative work. Robert was improvising, but the ideas flowed naturally. Nothing that requires special training, but it pays well. Enough for you to pay off the loan in 2 years. What if the surgery doesn't work? What if Thomas doesn't get better? The loan doesn't depend on the surgery's outcome. It depends only on your work and honesty, which you've already demonstrated. Robert paused. And if it doesn't work, at least you will have tried without you having to sacrifice yourself this way. Maria remained silent for a long time, clearly processing the offer. Robert could see the conflict on her face, hope battling incredulity, pride fighting necessity. Why trust me after what you found me doing? Because desperate people do desperate things. But when the situation changes, true character shows itself. Robert approached the desk. You are not a schemer or a criminal. You are a mother who will do anything for her son. I respect that. Maria remained silent for almost a full minute, her hands trembling slightly as she held the coffee cup. Robert could see the internal struggle etched on her face, desperate need clashing with wounded pride. What exactly would the conditions be? She finally asked, her voice cautious. Robert sat opposite her, adopting a more professional demeanor. First, you receive the money tomorrow. A direct bank transfer, so you can schedule the surgery immediately. Her eyes widened. Tomorrow. There's no point in waiting. Every day of delay is another day of suffering for your son. Robert picked up a notepad and began to write. Second, your salary here increases by 40%. Third, extra work on Saturdays, 4 hours, an additional payment of $1,500 per month. Maria did the math mentally. That would be almost $3,000 extra per month. I could pay off the loan in less than 2 years. Exactly, and meanwhile, you focus solely on being a mother and a worker, nothing else. Robert looked at her seriously. This is the most important condition. You completely stop the other activity. But what if there's a medical emergency? If Thomas needs another unforeseen treatment? We'll revise the agreement as needed. The important thing is that you never put yourself at risk like that again. Robert paused. Which bank do you have an account with? Maria stated the name of a popular institution, clearly still processing how quickly her life was changing. All right. Tomorrow morning you'll receive a call from my assistant. She'll need some documents from you and your son to formalize everything. Robert continued writing. I'll also need the contact information for the doctor responsible for the surgery. Dr. Henry Adams in Los Angeles. He's a spina bifida specialist. Maria provided the information automatically, still in shock. Perfect. My assistant will contact him as well to ensure everything is scheduled as quickly as possible. Robert finished writing and looked at her. Is there anything else that needs urgent resolution? Other treatments, medications? Maria shook her head slowly. I can't believe this is happening. Why are you doing this? Robert put down the pen. Because I recognize true desperation when I see it. Because I know what it's like to love a child more than your own life. And because perhaps I need to do this as much as you need to receive it. What do you mean? My son forgave me before he left. He said he understood that I worked so hard because I wanted to give the best to our family. Robert looked out the window again. But I never forgave myself. Perhaps helping you both is a way to do something right this time. Maria wiped away the tears that had started to fall. What was his name? Michael. He was 16 when we discovered the cancer. Robert smiled sadly. He was passionate about cars, just like your son. He wanted to be an automotive engineer. I'm sure he would be proud of what you're doing now. Maria's words hit Robert unexpectedly. He hadn't thought about it, if Michael would approve of his actions, but somehow he knew he would. There's one last condition. Robert returned to a professional tone. I want to meet Thomas, not today, not tomorrow, but soon. If I'm investing in his surgery, I'd like to meet the boy. Maria hesitated. He'll ask a lot of questions. He's very curious. You can say I'm a friend from work who wanted to help. You don't need to explain details. Robert stood up. Now go home, rest. Tomorrow your life will change. Maria stood up as well, still holding the empty cup. Mr. Miller, I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just take care of your son and be happy. That's enough. She nodded and headed for the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. I have a question. When you saw me here, was your first reaction disgust or anger? Robert thought honestly. Anger. Anger at the violation of space, at the breach of trust. And now I feel admiration for a woman capable of sacrificing everything for her son. The next morning, Robert arrived at the office 2 hours earlier than usual. He had spent the night awake, organizing the details of the proposal he had made to Maria. For the first time in years, he felt energized by something unrelated to the company's business. His first call was to Dr. Henry Adams in Los Angeles. He explained the situation objectively, asking for information about the surgery and its availability to perform it as soon as possible. "I know Thomas's case," the doctor said. "His mother contacted me 3 months ago. It's a complex surgery, but we have good chances of success. The problem has always been the cost." "The cost is no longer a problem. When can we schedule?" "If she can get the payment by Friday, I can operate on him next Tuesday. I have an opening in my schedule due to a cancellation." Dr. Henry seemed surprised by the speed of the solution. "May I ask what your relationship is with the family?" "I'm the mother's employer. I consider this a social investment." Robert didn't want to get into personal details with a stranger. After settling the medical details, Robert called his personal assistant, Sarah, an efficient woman who had worked with him for 10 years. "Sarah, I need you to prepare a personal loan agreement, $60,000, interest-free, 2-year term." Robert dictated the terms as she wrote everything down. "I also want to increase the salary of Maria Smith from the night cleaning crew. A 40% raise, retroactive from today." Sarah raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. She was used to her boss's sudden decisions, though this one was particularly unusual. "And I want to hire the same Maria for extra administrative work on Saturdays. 4 hours, $1,500 per month." "What kind of administrative work?" Robert paused. He had promised extra work, but hadn't thought specifically about what she would do. "Organization of personal documents. I have 5 years of accumulated papers at home. She can help digitize and organize everything." It was true. Since Michael's death, Robert had completely neglected his personal organization. Boxes of documents, photos, and important papers were scattered around the house, waiting for attention he never gave. "Do you want me to prepare the papers for her to sign today?" "Yes." "And then call her. Her number is in the employee file." Robert paused. "Sarah, be gentle with her. She's going through a difficult time." Sarah nodded and withdrew. Robert was left alone in his office, looking at the spot where he had found Maria the night before. It was strange how the atmosphere felt different now. No longer violated or profaned, but somehow more human. The phone rang. It was Dr. Henry again. "Mr. Robert, I just spoke with Thomas's mother. She's in shock. She said someone offered to pay for the surgery, but she didn't believe it was real." The doctor chuckled softly. "She made me repeat 3 times that the surgery was confirmed for Tuesday." "And she accepted the date?" "More than accepted. She started crying on the phone. She said it was a miracle." Dr. Henry paused. "Mr. Robert, I've worked with spina bifida cases for 15 years. I've seen many families struggling with lack of resources. What you're doing for this family is extraordinary. I just hope the surgery is a success. The chances are very good. The boy is young, strong, and the problem is correctable. With good recovery, he can have a completely normal life." Dr. Henry seemed confident. "I will personally ensure he receives the best possible care." After hanging up, Robert leaned back in his chair. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something that truly mattered. It wasn't about numbers, profits, or market strategies. It was about a child who deserved the chance to walk, to run, to dream without limitations. The intercom buzzed. Sarah informed him that Maria had arrived and was waiting at reception. Maria entered the office, visibly nervous, wearing clothes more carefully chosen than the night before. She carried an old folder in her hands and appeared to have cried recently. "Good morning, Mr. Miller. Your assistant said you wanted to see me." Please sit down, Maria. We have some papers to sign. Robert gestured to the chair in front of his desk. Before that, did you speak with Dr. Henry? I did, yes. Her voice trembled with emotion. He said the surgery is scheduled for Tuesday. I still can't believe this is happening. Robert watched the tears forming in her eyes again. Believe it. In 2 hours, you'll have the money in your account, and your son will have the surgery he needs. Maria opened the folder and took out some documents. I brought everything your assistant asked for, my ID, proof of residency, and Thomas's birth certificate. Perfect. Robert took the papers and quickly examined them. Sarah also prepared the loan agreement and the documents for your new salary. As Robert organized the papers, Maria looked around the office with different eyes. Mr. Miller, may I ask a personal question? You may. Yesterday you told me about your son. What was he like? Robert stopped moving the documents. Michael was special, intelligent, determined, but also rebellious. He wanted to prove he could achieve everything on his own. He smiled at the memory. When we discovered the cancer, he said he was going to fight it like it was just another competition he needed to win. And did he fight? He fought like a warrior. 2 years of treatment, never gave up, never complained. Robert took a deep breath. It was I who couldn't rise to his fight. Maria leaned forward. I'm sure you did what you could. I did what I knew how to do. Work harder to pay for the best treatments, but I forgot to simply sit beside him and talk about normal things. Robert looked at her. Your son is lucky to have a mother who understands what truly matters. Sometimes I don't feel that way, especially after yesterday. Maria lowered her eyes. When I got home, Thomas asked why I was crying. I told him I was happy because good things had happened at work. And you didn't lie. Good things did happen. Sarah knocked on the door and entered with a stack of documents. The contracts are ready for signing. I also confirmed with the bank the transfer can be made immediately after signing. Robert reviewed each document with Maria, explaining all the terms, the interest-free loan, the salary increase, the extra work on Saturdays. Everything was formally documented, protecting both parties. A question about the Saturday work, Maria said as she signed the papers. What exactly would I be doing? Organizing personal documents at my house, digitizing, filing, creating an organizational system. Robert paused. To be honest, I haven't touched those papers since Michael died. Perhaps it's time to put things in order. Maria nodded with understanding. Sometimes organizing things on the outside helps to organize things on the inside too. The observation surprised him with its depth. Exactly. After all the signatures, Sarah left to process the bank transfer. Robert and Maria were alone again. Mr. Miller, may I ask you something that might be inappropriate? You may. Do you have other children? Are you married? Divorced 5 years ago. Michael was an only child. Robert leaned back in his chair. And you? Do you plan to marry again someday? Maria laughed genuinely for the first time. First, I need to get Thomas walking. Then I can think about other things. She paused. But it would be good for him to have a father figure. He always asks about his dad. What do you tell him? That some fathers don't know how to be fathers, but that doesn't diminish the value of their children. Maria looked directly at him, just like I would say about some children who don't know how to forgive their fathers. The sentence hit him like lightning. It was simple, direct, and absolutely true. Sarah returned with confirmation of the transfer. It's done. The money is already in Maria's account. Maria looked at her phone and saw the bank notification. Her hands trembled as she saw the amount. Now it's real, she whispered. Thomas is going to have his surgery. 3 days later, Robert found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. visiting a hospital not as a patient or emergency escort, but as, he wasn't sure what to call it. A friend, a benefactor, simply someone who cared. St. Jude's Hospital was modern and well-equipped. Robert found Maria in the surgical waiting room, wearing the same clothes she wore for work, accompanied by an older woman he didn't know. "Mr. Miller!" Maria immediately stood up. "I didn't expect you to come. How could I not come? How is Thomas?" Anxious but brave, Dr. Henry spoke with him this morning, explained everything that's going to happen. Maria gestured to the woman beside her. "This is Mrs. Rose, my neighbor. She's like a grandmother to Thomas." Mrs. Rose extended her hand with a warm smile. "Maria told me all about you, sir. May God repay you twofold for such kindness." Robert greeted the woman, feeling slightly uncomfortable with the gratitude. "It's the least anyone would do." "No, it's not," Maria said firmly. "Most people would just walk by. You stopped to truly see." A nurse approached. "Family of Thomas Smith?" "Yes," Maria replied immediately. "The boy is being prepared for surgery. He wants to speak with you before going to the operating room." They were led to a small room where Thomas lay on a gurney, wearing a hospital gown. Robert saw him in person for the first time, and the impact was greater than he expected. The boy was exactly as in the photo. Bright eyes, determined smile. But there was a maturity in his face that could only come from years of dealing with pain. "Mommy!" Thomas reached out his arms to Maria. "The nurse said the surgery will take 4 hours." "That's right, my love. When you wake up, everything will be ready for you to start physical therapy." Maria kissed her son's forehead. Thomas looked at Robert with curiosity. "Are you the man who helped Mommy get the money for my surgery?" Robert approached the gurney. "I am. And you must be Thomas, who likes cars." "I do. My dream is to drive a Lamborghini." The boy's eyes lit up. "Mommy said maybe I can drive after the surgery. I'm sure you will. And you know what else?" Robert knelt to be at the boy's height. "My son also loved cars. He used to say that driving was like flying on the ground." Thomas smiled. "Your son must be really cool. Where is he?" Maria made a move to intervene, but Robert gently raised his hand. "He went to a place where he doesn't need cars to fly. But before he left, he taught me that the most important thing isn't having the fastest car, but having someone to share the journey with." The boy processed the answer with the seriousness only children can have. "Are you sad because he's gone?" "I was. But meeting you and your mother is helping me remember the good things he taught me. When I can walk, can I visit you? To talk about cars." Robert felt something stir in his chest, an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time. "Of course you can. In fact, I have some books about cars that I think you'd like to see." Dr. Henry entered the room dressed in surgical scrubs. "All right, everyone, it's time. Thomas, are you ready for this adventure?" "I am," the boy replied enthusiastically, then looked at Maria with seriousness. "Mommy, don't worry, I'm strong." Maria kissed her son once more, whispering words of love and encouragement. Robert watched the scene, remembering his last moments with Michael before his own surgeries. When they took Thomas away, the room fell silent. Maria sat heavily in a chair, Mrs. Rose held her hand, and Robert remained standing, looking out the window. 4 hours, Maria said to no one in particular. 4 hours to change a whole life, Robert completed. During the wait, they talked about simple things. Thomas's school, Maria's plans for the future, Mrs. Rose's stories about the neighborhood where they lived. Robert discovered that Maria was intelligent and observant, that Thomas got excellent grades despite constant absences for medical appointments, and that their community was close-knit and supportive. "You know what impresses me most about him?" Robert said. "I've never heard a word of self-pity. Not from him, not from you." Maria smiled tiredly. Life is hard enough without us complaining about it. 4 hours and 20 minutes later, Dr. Henry appeared in the waiting room, still in his surgical scrubs, but with a smile on his face that said everything even before he spoke. The surgery was a complete success. Maria broke down in tears. Mrs. Rose began to thank God aloud, and Robert felt a profound relief he hadn't experienced in years. The boy behaved like a champion. The spinal correction was perfect, and all neurological indicators are excellent. Dr. Henry sat beside them. He will need 3 months of intensive physical therapy, but the chances of full recovery are 90%. When can I see him? Maria wiped her tears. He's waking up now. In another hour you can visit him. The doctor looked at Robert. He specifically asked to speak with the car man when he woke up. Robert laughed, surprised. He remembered. He remembered and asked if you would teach him to drive when he got better. Dr. Henry smiled. He told me to tell you he's already chosen the car. He wants a red one. An hour later, they found Thomas awake, still groggy from the anesthesia, but smiling. He was lying on his stomach, but his eyes shone with joy. Mommy, the doctor said everything went well. Maria approached the bed, careful not to touch where she shouldn't. It did, my love. Now you just need to recover and do your physical therapy properly. Thomas looked at Robert. You stayed here the whole time? I did. I wanted to make sure everything went well. Thank you for helping my mom. She works really hard, you know. Sometimes she thinks I don't notice when she's sad, but I do. The boy spoke with surprising maturity. Now she can be truly happy. Robert approached the bed. And you, how do you feel? Strange. My legs are numb, but the doctor said that's normal. Thomas tried to move and grimaced. It hurts a little, but it's different from the pain before. This pain is because it's getting better. Dr. Henry, who had accompanied the visit, nodded. Exactly, Thomas. In the next few days, you'll start feeling different sensations in your legs. It's a sign that the nerves are reconnecting. Robert watched Maria hold her son's hand, seeing for the first time in days a look of real hope in her eyes. No longer the desperation disguised as optimism, but genuine hope. Mr. Robert, Thomas said, when I can walk, will you teach me to drive? I'll do better than that. When you're ready, we'll visit a sports car dealership. You can sit in as many as you want and choose what your goal will be. The boy's eyes widened. Really? Really? But first you need to focus on getting well. Maria looked at Robert with an expression of profound gratitude. It wasn't just for the surgery money, he realized. It was for treating her son like a normal child, with normal dreams, and not as an object of pity. 3 months later, Robert was in his office when Sarah announced that Maria had arrived.